Hello, my name's Serena and I'm 30 years old. I made the mistake of marrying a man with more issues than you could ever imagine. You see, I had this notion that love could conquer all, that I could fix him and make him see his worth. Oh, how wrong I was. Love may be powerful, but it can't teach someone how to love themselves. My ex, let's call him Rob, had an unhealthy obsession with pleasing his parents. And I'm not talking about your typical desire for parental approval. No, it was an all-consuming obsession that dictated his every move. It was as if he believed that his worth as a person was entirely dependent on his parents' validation. Now, let's talk about his lovely parents, shall we? We'll call them Mr. and Mrs. Smith for the sake of anonymity. They were the epitome of neglectful parenting. They rarely showed any genuine interest in their son's well-being, leaving him constantly starved for their attention and approval. It was a heartbreaking sight to witness, but I soon realized that I couldn't fill the void that his parents had left behind. To make matters worse, Rob had a nasty habit of squandering our hard-earned savings at his parents' whims. Can you believe it? I'm talking about extravagant gifts, lavish vacations, and all sorts of unnecessary expenses. It was like money was pouring through our fingers straight into the pockets of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Naturally, this financial irresponsibility became a major point of contention between us. We would argue endlessly about his reckless spending and his inability to prioritize our future. It felt as though I was constantly battling against his parents' influence, and it took a toll on our marriage. But here's the thing, despite the chaos and the endless arguments, I never stopped caring for Rob. I wanted him to break free from the shackles of his parents' expectations and find happiness within himself. However, it became clear that my love alone couldn't save him from the clutches of their toxic influence. Oh, hold tight, folks, because things are about to get even more intense in this roller coaster of a tale. So, one day, Rob approaches me with an air of seriousness, claiming that he has something important to tell me. Now, I'm no stranger to his antics, but little did I know that this conversation would lead to our worst fight yet. Serena, I need to talk to you about something important. All right, what is it? You know my parents are retiring, right? Well, I want to surprise them with a luxury trip. It's going to be quite expensive. That's fine as long as you're using your own money. I can't bear another argument about our savings. I can't afford it on my own. I need to use our savings for this trip. Rob, if you can't afford it, then maybe it's not a good idea to spend so much. Then he snapped at me. You don't understand, Serena. I love my parents and I'd do anything for them, even go above and beyond. Love shouldn't be measured by lavish expenditures. It's about being there for each other, supporting one another. But this trip is important to them. I want to make them happy. And I want us to be financially stable. Using all our savings for a trip is not responsible. You don't get it. This is something I feel compelled to do. I want to give my parents the world. Rob, we can show love and support without sacrificing our financial security. We need to find a reasonable solution. But I thought you'd understand. They mean the world to me. And you mean the world to me too, but we can't ignore practicality. We need to find a balance. You're just being selfish. I can't believe you won't support me in this. It's not about being selfish, Rob. It's about being responsible and planning for our future. How much will this cost anyways? I need all of it. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man had the audacity to ask me if I was willing to use all of our savings? He must have lost it. All of our life savings, Rob? Are you sick? Wow, Serena, I didn't think you'd be this heartless. You think money grows on trees? What makes you think that you can say crap like that and be so nonchalant about it? Well, I was planning on getting the money back. Oh, you were going to get $70,000 back. Okay, then that works then. No problem. Really? No, Rob, not really. I was being sarcastic. It's too much, and I won't allow it. Stop treating me like I'm a child. Then stop acting like one. I thought you were the person who would understand and stand by me. I do stand by you, but not at the expense of our financial stability. We need to think this through. The argument had escalated to a point where not only our voices were raised, but also a few things decided to go airborne and smash into a million pieces. Good times, right? And then, out of the blue, Rob drops the bomb. If you can't support me on this, then I want a divorce. Oh boy, he thought I'd start begging him to stay, fighting tooth and nail for our crumbling marriage. But guess what? I didn't take the bait. Nope, not this time. Instead, I summoned all the calm and poise I could muster and shot back. Okay, Rob, if that's what you really want. The shock on his face was priceless. He expected tears and desperate pleas, but instead he got me standing my ground. I was done coddling and enabling this man. If he wanted to squander his resources, then he was more than welcome to. I didn't hold back. Oh, no. I laid it all out on the table. I told him it was time for him to realize that his attempts to win his parents' approval were about as effective as using an umbrella in a hurricane. Pointless, my friend. He tried to argue, but I shut him down with a simple gesture, raising my hand as if to say, "Hold up, buddy." I told him I was tired. Tired of fighting for a love that was based on unrealistic expectations and the constant need for validation. It was time for me to take a stand. You want to spend your money impressing people who couldn't care less. Knock yourself out, buddy. But as for me, I'm done living in this cycle of disappointment and broken promises. Boom. The truth hit him like a ton of bricks. The reality of our situation sunk in, and it wasn't pretty. Our marriage had become a battleground, and it was time to wave the white flag and find our own separate paths. It had been a month since the papers were signed, sealed, and delivered, marking the official end of my turbulent marriage to Rob. And let me tell you, the sense of freedom and relief is absolutely intoxicating. No more sniveling, no more constant battles over money and his parents' approval. I can finally breathe without the weight of his insecurities dragging me down. Life was looking brighter by the day, my friends. Now, I won't lie, Rob did try to worm his way back into my life. He reached out, acting all concerned, asking how I was doing. But I saw right through his little charade. I wasn't about to fall for his tricks again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, well, you know how the saying goes. I ignored his attempts at rekindling any kind of connection. I had learned my lesson. I had spent far too long trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. It was time to focus on myself, my growth, and my happiness. Getting back on my feet wasn't easy. I won't sugarcoat it. Dividing our assets and adjusting to a new financial situation took some time and effort. I had grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle, but hey, I'm no stranger to hard work. I rolled up my sleeves and embraced the challenge of rebuilding my life as a single woman. I discovered newfound strength and independence within myself. I started reconnecting with old friends, pursuing hobbies that had long been neglected, and exploring new passions. The world was my oyster, and I was determined to savor every moment of this newfound freedom. Sure, there were moments of doubt and loneliness, and still adjusting to this new financial situation was certainly challenging. The scars of a failed marriage don't vanish overnight. But with each passing day, I found solace in knowing that I was no longer compromising my own happiness for the sake of someone else's insecurities. My ability to move on so quickly was probably an indication that I'd been beating a dead horse for a while now. I was so surprised at how much I could accomplish without that dead weight on my shoulders. So there I was, another month later, still adjusting, but thriving nonetheless. And Rob was still bombarding me with messages. Except this time it was a bit different. He'd gone the full-blown cry me a river route, claiming he was in danger and desperately needed to meet with me. I was getting tired of him contacting me, and I wanted to put this issue to rest once and for all. So I called in the middle of one of his text rants and said, "Rob, I told you, I don't want to hear it. We're divorced, remember? It's time for us, you, to move on." "Serena, please, just give me a chance to explain. I'm in serious trouble and I didn't know who else to call. I need your help." Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't heard his voice in so long, or perhaps he genuinely sounded terrified, but I relented. "Fine, but I'm not inviting you into my home. Let's meet at the cafe we used to go to. I don't want any funny business." "Thank you, Serena. I promise. I just need a listening ear. I'm desperate, and you're the only one who truly knows me." I know, my friends. You're probably thinking, "Serena, what on earth possessed you to meet up with Rob after all you've been through?" Believe me, I ask myself the same question, but sometimes even the strongest of us have moments of weakness, and I let curiosity and the lingering flicker of care get the best of me. Who was I kidding? I couldn't resist his desperate plea for help. Just because we were divorced didn't mean that I didn't care about him. So there we were, sitting across from each other in that cozy little cafe. The air was filled with intoxicating scent of freshly brewed coffee, but even that couldn't mask the palpable tension in the room. It was like stepping into a war zone of emotions. I couldn't help but observe Rob's face as he sat there, anxiety riddling with his features. It was almost comical how he tried to convey his distress through those puppy dog eyes, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I leaned back in my chair, trying to exude a sense of control. I was determined to keep this conversation on my terms. "All right, Rob, you've got my attention. What's this danger you've managed to stumble into? And let me be clear, I'm not interested in being your savior anymore. I've had my fair share of cleaning up your messes." Rob let out a heavy sigh, his face a blend of regret and desperation. It was almost pitiful to witness, but I reminded myself not to be swayed by his theatrics. "I know I've messed up in the past, Serena, but this time it's different. I've gotten myself tangled up with some really dangerous people. I owe them a substantial amount of money, and they're not exactly the forgiving type." I raised an eyebrow, not fully buying into his tale of woe. "Dangerous people? Really, Rob? Are we talking about those imaginary friends of yours again? You always had a knack for attracting trouble, didn't you?" Rob's eyes widened. A mixture of hurt and frustration flashed across his face. It was clear that he expected a different response from me, but after everything we had been through, I had grown tired of being the one who constantly tried to fix him. "No, Serena, I'm not making this up. You think I wanted this? Me coming to you with my tail between my legs asking for help? Okay, let me guess. You took the divorce hard and you needed money." "Not necessarily. Remember the trip I told you about?" "Oh, God, don't tell me you borrowed money to fund a trip." People around the cafe looked at me as I raised my voice. I sent over an apologetic stare, trying to compose myself. "Look, Serena, I got involved in something I shouldn't have. I know that now, and now I'm paying the price. I need your help to figure a way out of this mess." My frustration started to bubble up, ready to boil over. How could he come back into my life with yet another disaster of his own making? But beneath my anger, a sliver of compassion lingered, reminding me that he was still human, even if he was deeply flawed. "How much do you owe?" 50. $50,000? Rob, are you crazy? The cafe threw daggers at me, but this time I didn't bother apologizing. If they heard what I was hearing, they'd shout too. "Serena, please, I'm desperate and I've nowhere else to turn. I know I messed up, but I still care about you. You were the one who truly believed in me. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, a glimmer of the man I once fell in love with, but it was too little, too late. I had to protect myself, even if it meant turning my back on him. Oh, don't do that, Rob. Don't try and reel me in. It's too late for that now. I thought you were going to say something like $5,000. Hell, I might have even been gracious and allowed 10 grand. But 50? $50,000? You must have lost your mind. Rob began to sob, crying loudly and not caring about the other patrons. He was making a fool of himself. Rob, this is not the time or the place. Logistically, what's going to happen if you don't pay them back? They'll break my legs, Serena. Jesus, that sounds serious. This isn't funny, Serena. I'm in serious trouble. I know, Rob, I know. Why don't you explain everything from the beginning this time? Rob poured out his tale of woe, confessing how he had obtained the money to fund his parents' extravagant trip. He explained that a friend had promised to lend him the funds, but that friend had let him down, leaving him trapped in this huge-ass debt. As he revealed the details, a mix of frustration and amusement filled me. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh, recognizing the twisted web Rob had woven for himself. So, let me get this straight. You took money from these dangerous people to please your parents, who haven't even bothered to thank you or show any appreciation for the lavish trip you funded? Is that what you're telling me? Rob's expression grew sullen, tears streaming down his face, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. He shook his head, his voice laden with regret. It's true, Serena. My parents haven't even reached out to me since they embarked on their grand adventure. It's like I'm invisible to them. I couldn't help but feel bad for the guy. What a predicament, am I right? It was almost poetic justice witnessing Rob come face to face with the reality of his choices. But I couldn't gloat, not with this man silently sobbing in front of me. I know you don't want to hear this right now, but you did this to yourself, Rob. I told you that it wasn't wise. And what's worse, you divorced me over it. And now here you are, not knowing what to do. You chased their approval, poured your life savings into fulfilling their desires, and they haven't even bothered to acknowledge your sacrifice. As much as it hurts, this is a hard lesson you needed to learn. It was a bitter pill for both of us to swallow. Rob had placed his self-worth in the hands of those who were incapable of appreciating his efforts. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I couldn't save him from his missteps any longer. I was hoping that now, with his legs in danger, he would understand that I was always on his side, and that his reducing himself to just a puppet that pleased his parents led to his downfall in the end. As the reality of the situation settled upon us, silence enveloped the cafe. The weight of our shared history, of all the broken promises and shattered dreams, hung heavy in the air. At that moment, I knew it was time to walk away for good. No more second chances, no more futile attempts to mend what was irreparably broken. Rob had to face the consequences of his actions, and I had to find my own path towards happiness. I hope you find a way out of this mess, Rob. What? You're not going to help me? What the heck? No, Rob, I'm not going to help you. Why not? I don't have the funds for it. Can't you get a loan? A loan that I'd have to spend the rest of my life paying back? No, thanks. I'm not as reckless as you are. Come on, Serena, please, I'm begging you. Huh? With the way that you're acting, it's almost as if you expected me to help you. Yeah, I did. You're my ex-wife, not my mortal enemy. And you see, that's the problem right there. You think that I'm always going to be here. And that's because I always was. I was your wife. Rob, of course I was going to dig you out of your messes. But I can't keep doing that. It's not my job or responsibility. I don't owe you anything. And honestly, after all the crap you put me through, squandering our expenses for your ungrateful and toxic parents, It's because I love them, Serena, you know that. And I love myself. And so I have to do what's best for myself. And that includes protecting myself, Rob. He hung his head, finally admitting defeat and realizing that if he was going to get help, it wasn't going to come from me. Because it's free, I'm going to give you some advice. Leave the country. Pack up your life and move somewhere where they can't find you. And if you can't do that, then I don't know how else to help you. Rob just sat in silence, almost pouting like he was irritated at my refusal to help him. It's time for us to part ways. I can't keep getting caught in the storm of your life. We both deserve a chance at finding our peace. I wish you well, Rob. I mean it. If you wish me well, you'd help me out. Goodbye, Rob. I'm getting a new number. With those words, I rose from my seat, leaving Rob sitting there, his face a mosaic of emotions. It was a painful yet necessary step towards reclaiming my happiness, my sense of self.